Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Fan and the Critic. I almost forgot what the name of this podcast was as I was introducing that, but I got it. We are here this month, I guess, to talk about Christopher Nolan and all his films and doing a spotlight on his latest film, Oppenheimer, which we have all seen. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to rank all 11 feature-length Christopher Nolan films. And I am joined by, as always, Paulo as my co-host, and our guest this month is Tony, who is joining us. So thanks for joining us, Tony.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Really excited to dive in.
So as we always do with new guests of the show, we've asked you to pick three movie or TV characters. It doesn't have to be related to Christopher Nolan at all, but just anything to help introduce yourself and your personality. So what did you come up with?
Yeah, for sure. I hope that you guys don't judge me for this. It's definitely not at all related to Christopher Nolan and very much personal to me. So I chose three, kind of spanning different genres. The first one being George from Seinfeld, Jason Alexander. Just love how neurotic he is. I'm also neurotic, but not quite as neurotic as George from Seinfeld. But I can sympathize and empathize with a lot of the social situations that he gets himself into. And of course, he's based on Larry David and love Curb as well. So definitely love the character and sometimes see a lot of myself in George for better or for worse. Second one is Uncle Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Absolutely love that show, and I find myself going back and really watching a lot of the scenes with Uncle Iroh. Really love the original voice actor, passed away midway through the show. Mako, I think was his name. Just had a great voice, but love the character. Love his affinity for tea. I also love tea. I just love his approach to um, most conflicts in most situations. He had a very calming presence and just a very whimsical way to look at things, and I really appreciate that and have really grown to kind of view conflicts the same in a lot of the way that Uncle Iroh did. And the last one is Mary from Lord of the Rings, like of Merry and Pippin fame. He's just he's a great friend. He's very, very, very loving, very courageous. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily very courageous, but I do consider myself to be a great friend to those that know me. And yeah, he likes to have fun, likes to have a good time, and I definitely appreciate those values, and also just love Lord of the Rings and love Merry and Pippin.
I find Mary to be the always the forgotten one, which I'm glad he's getting some love here.
Yeah. Well, when I was talking about this with my fiance yesterday, she's like, "You can't do Pippin. Pippin is the worst. Like he like almost gets them killed like 10 times over in the first movie." I'm just like, "Yeah, you're right. Like Pippin's great, but Mary's great too. But they're all great in their own right."
But Pippin also has, I think, like a better character arc because he starts from such a low place that when he, kind of builds up and eventually becomes the Gondor soldier, it's like, okay, that's
Mhm.
quite the journey. Whereas Mary, you kind of see as being a little bit more serious from the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Um, but it's not really explored in the movies. But I also really like their journey afterwards and like just their continued friendship and their kind of exploration around the universe, the Middle Earth. But yeah, Mary was my choice. What'd you guys think of Uncle Iroh and George?
I have not seen Avatar, like either TV shows or the movie adaptations. I'm familiar with the character, so I know the general idea. Having known you like previously, I don't think I would have picked any of those three characters, so that's interesting. Um, but yeah.
That's what I was gonna ask actually. I know you mentioned you guys haven't spoken in like 10 years, but I was like, does that track with how you remember how you remember Tony?
I guess it doesn't track, but it also doesn't not track, if that makes sense. Like,
So it's not wildly inaccurate.
I guess. Also, people change a lot in 10 years. I'm sure the version of myself 10 years ago was a little bit more alcohol based than today. All right, so gonna jump into our first conversation. So as I mentioned, we're gonna talk about Christopher Nolan's latest movie, Oppenheimer. We'll do kind of a deep dive on that, and then I guess we'll see where that fits into the larger filmography of Christopher Nolan. So we haven't discussed this previously. I don't even know like even the most general of opinions. So maybe that's a good place to start. What were your general impressions? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Somewhere in between.
Paulo, go
After you,
ahead.
Tony.
Oh, sure.
You're a guest, please.
Yeah, I really quite enjoyed it. I didn't, truth be told, like know much. I mean, I knew who Oppenheimer was. I knew what he was, infamous or famous for. But I didn't really know like the lead up to it and what actually happened after the fact. So I think the film did a really great job of, sure, like there was a build up to when the bomb was going to go off ultimately during the test, but I really liked the exploration for that hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes afterwards of the aftermath of what happened and how he was kind of reviewed and treated in American politics and American culture. But I really enjoyed it. It didn't feel like I was watching a 3 hour or 3 hour and plus film. It felt like pretty quick when I was sitting there in the theater. And I really enjoyed it through and through. Definitely a very solid film, and didn't feel like it was biopicky at all. It could have been really any film in its own right. It didn't have to be about Oppenheimer, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely certain things that I'm going to pick out, like the length. That was one of the things that I expected. Nowadays, I tend to get I don't sleepy in like maybe the third hour, the last 30 minutes maybe. But I think this was structured well enough. Excitement aside from like what was happening in the story, but it was structured well enough that there was like highs placed strategically near the end. For example, like normally around the time where I'll get tired is like when the trial was picking up and there was a little bit of like, I don't know if it was Oppenheimer's doing with the scientist testifying against Robert Downey Jr.'s senator. I can't remember his name. Um, and like his wife coming to his defense, like all of that was like nice and really picked things up again after a bit of a valley in the story. And then also on top of that, like going into it, I'm kind of the same as you, Tony. I wasn't really familiar with the story. I know it's based on a book. I haven't read it. I know who he is, and even when the movie was introduced, I wasn't super excited about it. I wasn't super high on like, oh, I really want to know what happened with Oppenheimer.
Mm-hmm.
But like I gave it I gave it the benefit of the doubt on the strength of Christopher Nolan directing it. Um, and I mean, yeah, I wasn't disappointed. Like it definitely exceeded my expectations. And I liked it quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I liked it. I didn't love it. I think it was a victim of expectations because it's hard for like Christopher Nolan to just make a regular movie that's about a character is like people aren't expecting that. They're expecting much more. And I think with how the movie was marketed, like it was all here's the bomb. It's going to be this amazing visual effects. There was this talk about like him actually detonate, like people making jokes about it. They would actually detonate an atomic bomb and film it. And so like people had all these expectations, and after watching it, you kind of realize like that's not what the movie was going to be about at all. And especially when you actually get to the point in the movie where the bomb actually goes off, like it's very kind of anticlimactic from a visuals perspective. It,
Underwhelming.
it
Yeah.
fit the scene, like it fit, in my opinion, what the movie was trying to do, but it was maybe marketed not the right way. I like the type of movie it was aiming to be, but my biggest complaint is that like what is it really about? Like you see some of his bigger movies like Interstellar is this big long movie and it wraps it in a nice bow. I didn't like the bow that it wrapped it in, but it did try to like bring everything together. Whereas this one it was like here's this big long story about how everything happened, and then we also have this story about the trial and like how he was treated afterwards, and it's just like for me it didn't all connect. Still very good like individual scenes and obviously great acting, but it was just like at the end of it I was like, okay, what's the point of the story?
I don't know. I mean, I felt like there were a few points like it was balancing being kind of a biopic of Oppenheimer and how kind of I guess naive he was with like the politics game and the need to be not his own need, but why it was important for people to like him and respect him, versus like nuclear bombs are bad as the main lesson. I mean, the connection between those two things were kind of thin, but I saw there was kind of like I felt like there was kind of a mirror between him and I keep forgetting what Robert Downey Jr.'s character.
Strauss.
Strauss, yes. Strauss. No, it's Strauss, not Strauss. Sorry. But yeah, just like holding them up against each other, or like kind of comparing the two. I felt that's kind of what they were doing when, especially when they were having the hearing versus the hearings on or the, I don't know, his security clearance hearing versus the
Yeah.
confirmation hearing. And there's a line about like two scorpions. I can't remember who says it in the movie, but like I saw that I saw it kind of also referring to Oppenheimer and Strauss. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the connecting those themes were kind of like it wasn't a really strong connection, but it was there enough for me.
Yeah, I also do feel that like with the source material being American Prometheus, and I mean, obviously he drew on other sources too, like it's a real life person that lived and did something for real. It's tough to wrap it up in kind of that neat bow, whether we like it or not, when he has to go by whatever the source material is, like especially for as sensitive of a topic as it is of developing the atomic bomb. It's difficult to then kind of end the film on a different note other than how his real life actually ended. And I think I would have hated it a lot more had the movie taken like a hard stance of like, no, nuclear weapons are really bad and here's why, and we're going to show you this example of Oppenheimer's life and how he had this struggle and internal monologue of, I'm developing this thing that's going to be saving humanity versus actually dangerous for humanity in the future. I mean, it still presented it that way and that internal struggle that Oppenheimer went through. But I'm glad that, I mean, I haven't read American Prometheus, but I presume that it's pretty faithful to the source material. And I did like go on this whole deep rabbit hole afterwards of reading everything I could about Oppenheimer after the movie. So I was really interested in Oppenheimer and just wanting to know more about him and like his life and what happened. And it seemed to be like pretty spot on with what happened in his life. And I can appreciate that, and I can appreciate the acting and the execution of that in the movie was well done. Instead of it being wrapped up into an ending that I was comfortable with or happy with.
I'm okay with like a vague ending. I almost wish they had gone a little bit further in regards to asking the question of who Oppenheimer was. I think there was a certain point where Robert Downey Jr.'s he was accusing Oppenheimer of like, he knew we were going to use the bomb. He did this whole thing because he wanted to be famous. Like he knew what he was getting himself into. And by the time Robert Downey Jr. is giving that line of dialogue, you don't really believe him. Like you kind of feel like, oh, he's just worried about himself. But I wish they tried to convince us, the audience, a little bit more that like maybe he is that type of guy, like where you kind of don't know. Like another Christopher Nolan movie, an Inception, at the end, you have the spinning pop top, and it kind of just leaves you with the question of whether you think it's real or not. Like I wish that they kind of ended this with the question of like, who is he? Especially because there's the speech he gives after the bomb where he's like, "Oh, I just wish we could have dropped it on the Germans first." So it's like he was saying these things that I feel like you could have shown the other side of him and posed it as more of a question of like what were his motives, like what was his reasoning for being part of this project. And I
I
think
mean,
like
he wasn't wrong about that. No, I'm just kidding.
but like yeah, like they introduced it, they kind of like tiptoed around it. I just felt like I wish they would have explored that a little more. Like I don't want it, when I say
Yeah.
wrapped in a bow, I guess what I really mean is like tied around a central theme, even if that theme ends on a question. It just kind of felt like it was going in different places at different times.
Yeah, I do get that. I feel that the topic though is quite sensitive with Oppenheimer and like how he was perceived like after the fact, like after the testing was complete and it was successful. Like that has since been like publicly retracted, and I think it was like quite recent actually. I was reading about this on his Wikipedia page where like I think it was the Biden government or maybe the government before it. Like publicly said like how that hearing was handled was incorrect, like it was not handled properly. We didn't, follow due process, all of these things. So I think Christopher Nolan knew that going into it, and I think he wanted to avoid maybe having that kind of conflict in the movie where it's up to the interpretation of the viewer to say, like, did Oppenheimer just want to develop this to, drop a bomb, or like, did he want to develop this for other reasons? Like, what was his reasoning really? So I think he's really been exonerated in history, Oppenheimer, and no one knows that, and that's why I think he didn't leave it up to the interpretation of viewers.
Yeah, and the other thing that I wish they would have gone into a little bit, like, because if you don't go into the interpretation on that, I think you can also pose the question a little bit more of like, was it a good thing that they dropped the bomb? Like, was it a like they go a little bit more towards the side of like, oh, this is like terrible, we're killing people, but that's a pretty complex question of was it the right thing to do? Did it save lives by preventing like a disastrous World War III, stuff like that? Even like conversations I had. Oh, I shouldn't talk, but she's not going to listen to this episode anyway. So anyway, I was talking to my wife after that, and like she's from Korea, and at that time, at the end of World War II, like Japan was taking over Korea and doing a lot of terrible stuff to their citizens. So like, as terrible as dropping that bomb was, like it did kind of do some good things in the region by causing like bad things that the Japanese government was doing to kind of stop. So it's like that's
Mhm.
a very complex moral question of like what happened with the bomb. And again, I feel like they tiptoed around it, but I just wish they would have explored the other sides of that a little bit more.
Yeah, well, I mean, for something like that, I feel like it's more of a victim of the length and like trying to be as accurate and thorough as possible in terms of like including all of the source material, because they did a really good job. Apparently they did a really good job of being true to life. A lot of the things that they portrayed in the movie actually did happen, which you don't see a whole lot of in stuff like this. And I mean, in a 3 hour long movie already, where it's some things are they're moving pretty fast, especially that like you have the little conversation about, okay, where should we drop the bomb? Like where will it do the least amount of civilian damage, but also like have the desired effect. Also, we have to do it twice so that they know like we can continue doing this and stuff like that. So they included it, but it like they did not necessarily have to tiptoe around it, but they just had to keep things moving, or else it would have been an extra 2 hours. But that being said, I think it was still effective. Like it got me thinking. Like you see a lot of movies nowadays where people throw around the word nuke. Oh, like there's a nuclear bomb in the city. Like we got to find it. Like in an action movie, whatever, And then you kind of get numb to like how bad it actually is. And I think this movie did a good job of kind of like it's not even a nuclear bomb. It's an atom bomb, but it's still like the worst thing that you could possibly do, right? And I really did get that sense, so I give it kudos for that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they captured the fear really well, and especially the fear of the unknown too. I do like. I feel like they didn't do it justice where like him and Einstein were having that conversation and worrying about the potential of the chain reaction and like the world ending as a result. And like they talked about it and they're like, yeah, this might happen, kind of. They're like, we did calculations, we're good, like don't worry about it. And like I feel like maybe it was under like a bit kind of underscored as to like how serious that could have possibly been. So it was the first time like ever they were developing this kind of thing, and they were just like, yeah, we're pretty confident that's not going to happen. So we're just going to go with it because the Germans are developing or the Russians are, so we have to too. That was kind of funny.
It was, yeah. They were pretty nonchalant about it. Like, oh, this, like, we press this button, it might end the world. Okay.
I feel like that's one of those things they did for dramatic effect where somebody at some point in the calculation said, hey, this is a very outlier concern and maybe we're just gonna have to live with that. But it's like obviously in a movie you have to make that a little bit more exciting. So it's like, oh, maybe we'll just blow up the world. Like who knows? But
Well,
I did
apparently
love.
that was actually one of the things that was true. And I don't know like to what level it was, but they did actually have to run calculations to make sure that they wouldn't end the world. It just wasn't it wasn't Einstein that did them. It was, I believe it was the guy who was played by Kenneth
Niels
Branagh.
Bohr.
No. Yes, I
uh
think so.
no, it
Is it
Yeah, it
Kenneth
was Niels
was.
Branagh?
Bohr. Yeah, he played Niels Bohr.
Yes, him. I think it was apparently him who did the actual calculation, or
I thought
like
it was
reviewed the
Klaus
calculation.
Fuchs, but maybe I'm wrong.
Too many
Um,
names. Huge cast.
That's another thing
Huge
I want
cast.
to
Holy
bring
moly.
up, but I have like multiple points I got to talk about here. Um,
Okay.
so I think part of the reason why they were emphasizing that point around like the chain reaction is like they wanted to tie it back to, they had a nice conversation with Einstein at the end of like, oh, maybe you did start a chain reaction that is going to blow up the world. The chain reaction not being the bomb itself, but the development of the bomb contributing to future bombs, blah, 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 like escalating. So I think that's why they emphasize that a little bit as well, just because again, I it doesn't wrap the entire movie in a nice bow for me, but I did like that as like a closing statement on the movie. But going back to the cast, because we all talked about that, I wanted to compare this movie to Asteroid City because two movies that have like overwhelming like depth in regards to like supporting characters and the amount of actors in it. Asteroid City felt very distracting from like a cameo perspective of like Jeff Goldblum or Tilda Swinton going in, and like it almost like it stops the movie and it's like, oh, look at this cameo, isn't that a wacky character? Whereas there were like I had to look back at the cast of Oppenheimer and be like, oh, I didn't even realize that person was in it, even though like I know this character or I know this actor, and it's like I just thought of them as the character at the time, and they fit what the movie was trying to tell. So there was a bunch of people that I was like, oh, I didn't even catch that they were in this.
Do you think that's a product more so of like how Wes Anderson films are like the standard is that he's always going to have like basically the same 10 or 15 actors in every movie, and you're just looking to see where he's going to insert these like chess pieces basically, and like what scenes he's going to put them in. Whereas for Oppenheimer, yeah, he's worked with some of these actors before, but I mean, when I looked at Josh Peck in the scene, like, yeah, I watched
Yeah.
Drake and Josh, 20 years ago, but like, I didn't stop to think like, yeah, that's Josh Peck, cool. To your point, Carson, like it did do a really good job of blending in, but I do think that part of it is because of just Wes Anderson's style, and he just works with the same cast all the time, and you're almost expecting like, where is he going to insert Bill Murray or Jeff Goldblum or whoever into these scenes in the movie, and then you pay special attention to those scenes because you want to see how Jeff Goldblum's going to be, or how Jason Schwartzman's going to be, or whoever else is going to be.
Maybe, but I think like Christopher Nolan, I think both movies are an example of like actors are working with these directors because they just want to work with the directors. And they're probably working
Yeah,
for cheaper and doing smaller roles than they otherwise would because they just want to work with these people. But Christopher Nolan is almost taking advantage of that to cast good people in small roles to contribute to his story because he wants to tell the story. Whereas like it seems like Wes Anderson is writing the story around being able to put these characters in. And so I didn't love Asteroid City because it's like, what's the point of this movie? Like, this just seems like you're doing your own art experiment. Whereas like Oppenheimer is like, okay, I'm watching a movie. There's a story I'm following here.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, even when there is like less than a line of dialogue for each recognizable actor, like the only time that kind of took me out of it was when Oppenheimer met the president at the end, and um and like seeing him, I was like, of course it's Gary Oldman. Like there's no, I can't believe I thought it would be anyone else to act as the president, and then just like that was it. That was the only one, but it was like it was kind of jarring just knowing of course it is.
It's a
And then
great turn
also
for him, though.
sorry?
Great turn for Gary Oldman in that role. I loved it.
Oh yeah.
And that felt
Actually, I
appropriate
was
though, because it's like he's the president. You have to have a little bit of like gravitas behind him. So it's like I felt like that was still an appropriate casting.
yeah, sure. I
Agreed.
for definitely. I do agree. It's just like it was like a kind of obvious not obvious when I finally saw him. And then in that scene also I just wanted to shout out like the line where he calls Oppenheimer like a crybaby or something like that. That apparently actually happened. And that
Yeah.
is like shocking to me. Like what a dick.
Yeah, I mean, like, have you guys ever watched? There's like this like Oliver Stone documentary on Netflix. It's like called America History or something, and he just like goes through America's history from like World War I to like the Obama administration. He
No.
goes like really deep on Harry Truman and like talks about him personally and like how his personality was when he was in office, and talks a little bit about that, and just says like he's basically like a little kid, and like threw tantrums all the time, and was just not a nice person to work with. So it doesn't surprise me that he called him a little baby.
Oh, geez. Well, by that same vein, do you think Christopher Nolan cast Casey Affleck as the scummy investigator who just breaks the law to
I was
get what he
mentioning
wants?
that to my wife like right after the movie because she was like, "Oh, I didn't know he was still acting." But I was like, "It's a great casting because you're meant to dislike this character right away, and you do."
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
do you
it's
think he
true.
knows that? Like, do you think Casey Affleck knows that?
Probably has an idea.
Yeah, he's like,
Yeah,
I'm just here for everyone to hate me.
But hey, he's getting cast in a Christopher Nolan movie, so it's probably helping
Which,
his career.
yeah, that's also true. Speaking of, it was also really nice to see Alden Ehrenreich. After like I haven't seen him in anything since Solo. In such like a
oh
prestigious
man, that's
movie.
true. Wow,
Yeah,
that's crazy. I didn't realize that he was on Solo. Wow.
yeah,
I
and he did a
wish
good
that
job too.
he had a better role because I was confused as to whether he was supposed to be supporting Robert Downey Jr. because he almost seemed like he was a character of like, oh shit, Robert Downey Jr. is so evil, and like I'm happy that we're outing you that you're evil, and it's like, aren't you supposed to be? Aren't you his aide? Aren't you you're helping? So I was kind of confused, like what the point of his character was. But I agree, I'd like to see him in more things because not Solo, but I loved seeing him in Hail Caesar. He did a great job in that movie.
Uh, well, I mean, I in terms of his character, I did kind of see like a where it turned. Like he was pretty supportive from the beginning on, but like once everything started like flipping on Robert Downey Jr., you could see his motivation as to why he wasn't so supportive anymore. I mean, again, like a lot of things in the movie, it happened really fast, but yeah, I mean, I was fine with it.
Were you guys satisfied with like the main performances with Killian and RDJ and Florence and all those other characters? Were you happy with how those were executed?
Yeah, I would say everyone did a pretty good job. I would say like the supporting cast definitely enhances it because like none of like if you take away a lot of those supporting characters, I feel like they may have tried to push those characters to be a little bit more showy in those roles. Whereas because you have all this flavor in the background for all these characters, it allowed Oppenheimer to be kind of more of a boring character than he may have otherwise been allowed to be. So I felt they worked well together. I don't know if it would have been as good with just one or the other.
I don't know. I thought it was really like I really thought it was very well acted. Like it's I mean, just all around. I can't think of one performance that wasn't really good. Unless I'm just flying high on this movie, but like I really thought that the performances were really good.
I agree. I mean, I love Killian Murphy. I would love to see him in more things. I can't imagine like the personal toll, like being in this lead role and having to. I forget like what I was reading about how he had to learn like 100 lines of Dutch for that one scene,
Yeah.
or German or something, and like Matt Damon was talking about how him and his like cast and crew would go out for dinner and stuff, and Killian would just stay alone in his hotel, like reading lines and rehearsing for that scene. So I would love to see him in more things. He's amazing. Loved him in a lot of things, but yeah, he's great. I loved his role.
So the two performances that for me felt a little out of place was because you just mentioned him, Matt Damon. It just I don't know. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't like 100%. And then the other one, which wasn't bad performance, but it was just kind of weird to see, was Josh Hartnett as a scientist. Which like I know he's getting older and like he's technically fits that role, but it just like for me it seemed out of place, not because of their performance, but more because of like what I associate those actors with.
Hmm. Would you have wanted like if you were to do a role swap in the movie, do you think it would have been appropriate to swap Rami Malek's character for Josh Hartnett's character, and you wouldn't have blinked an eye?
Probably. I also like I didn't do any history behind this, but Remy Malek's character, his name is David Hill, and I was like, was David Hill in real life an Egyptian guy, or did they just completely change that character? Like, I mean, it's a small role, so like I don't really care. I was just more curious about that.
No, definitely not. Born in Boonville, Mississippi.
I don't know. I disagree about Matt Damon and Josh Hartnett. Like, especially, it's tougher for Matt Damon because he's such a recognizable face. But I mean, it's like similar to him and Robert Downey Jr. I like the way that I see them both in this movie. Like Robert Downey Jr., I wouldn't say he's unrecognizable, but like in terms of the performance, I don't see Iron Man or I don't see Sherlock Holmes there. Like I think he did a really great job of being some senator who sucks. And like same with Matt Damon. Like I think he played the character well in terms of like his relationship. Like to the point where I was focused on the relationship between him and Oppenheimer, which was like what's important between them two, and not so much that it's like Saving Private Ryan. And then same with Josh Hartnett. I think it might be partly because of watching him in Black Mirror, where he's an astronaut. But I think that helped me believe him a little more as a scientist. I mean, otherwise, it didn't take much convincing for me. Like I said,
Yeah,
I'm the biggest homer right now on this movie.
I'm being very
Number
nitpicky
one.
because it's a very good movie. So
Yeah,
like little complaints, little complaints.
yeah.
Here's a kind of unrelated topic that I wanted to mention. So, a reoccurring theme, if you've seen Tenet and I guess Dark Knight Rises as well in Christopher Nolan movies, is dialogue that you can't really understand what people are saying. But I actually liked it, and I think I'm actually wondering if it was a creative decision to do this intentionally, because there's a few scenes where they're in, I forget what the city is called, like the build like the fake city that they build to build Duam, and they're like talking about science stuff, and you can't really understand what they're saying, but the soundtrack kind of makes you think like, don't worry about what they're saying, and it's like it's a good film technique that you don't just want to tell your audience literally that like, hey, your character is smart. You want to find a way to demonstrate that they are talking about science, that they're smart, brilliant people dealing with complex problems, but you have so much going on in this movie, you don't really want the audience to get bogged down too much in the details. So I noticed there were a few scenes where they actually like showed the characters talking about specific details of building the bomb and different theories for how to solve it. And the soundtrack was kind of loud to the point where you're like, I don't understand what they're saying. And I'm almost wondering if that was a creative decision to just say, hey, we want to demonstrate that they're talking about details. We don't want you to care about the details. Because they did the same thing in Tenet when they were talking about time travel. Like every time they were talking about time travel, the dialogue volume would go down. And it was like, okay, we want you to know that they know. We don't need you to know the details. So
Hmm.
I don't know. It's either a mistake or it's an intentional creative decision, but I liked it ultimately.
Not to mention in Tenet, they were just fully said like, don't try and understand it. Like, um, but yeah, that's actually one thing that I wanted to bring up in terms of the soundtrack. Like, I didn't realize this until the very end of the movie, but when we walking out of it, my wife was like, "Did you notice that the music was playing the entire movie? Like the
Hmm.
soundtrack was going the entire movie." Aside from like a couple points, like for example, there was like silence when he's giving a speech after the bomb, and he's having like visions of like people's flesh melting and all that stuff. Obviously, it's silent there and a couple other times, but otherwise, like it's throughout the whole movie, and it's I didn't realize because I felt like it was adding so much in terms of like when it would build, and then it's like a really intense moment, and like I just kind of just let me along for the ride. So I think it had the intended effect that Carson was describing. I just like yeah, I didn't notice that at all until someone called it out to me. Someone, my wife.
I haven't watched Tenet, and I really do want to watch it, and I'm curious to see where you guys rank it later on. But um, do you think that this creative decision by Christopher Nolan to kind of muffle that dialogue a little bit and you know up the volume on the soundtrack, like do you think he's getting better at this over time? And like with his next feature film release, that's just going to be like more subtly placed, and you won't even think about it at that point. I feel like with Dark Knight, like I mean, I'm curious again to see where you guys rank Dark Knight Rises. Um, but it really bothered me the muffled dialogue. It really took away from my viewing experience of that film. Whereas in Dunkirk, same thing. Like when he's talking into the radio in the plane, you can't really understand anything he's saying, but that's fine. Like there's so much going on, there's so much suspense happening. Like it's a very tense moment. So I kind of get it there and I appreciate it. But In Tenet and Oppenheimer, it sort of sounds it was deployed similarly, and you guys liked the deployment of it in both those films. So I'm curious to hear if you think he's getting better at this, and would you want him to continue this practice in other films?
It is curious because, like bringing up Dark Knight Rises, like that maybe he was trying to do it and failed it the first time, but like it was not successfully done. Like you should be hearing what your main villain is saying, and so the fact that like
Mm-hmm.
you can't understand what Bane is saying for most of the movie, like maybe that was his first attempt at like, hey, I think this is a creative decision that's going to make movies better, and he just failed at it. And so yeah, maybe like 4 or 5 movies later, he's finally learning the right places and the right volumes to do it, or maybe it's just maybe his friend is the sound editor who's really shitty at his job and he just keeps hiring him. Like, who knows? Um, but yeah, definitely, it's contributing more to my enjoyment of his movies recently, regardless of whether I enjoy the movies overall. So if it is an intentional decision, I would say he's definitely getting better at it. I hope if he continues this that he picks his spots on it, because I don't know, Paul, you were saying like it was going the entire time. Like it'd be nicer to have a few more quiet moments here and there, as opposed to just like going the entire movie like that. Although I will
It
say
might have
that
been.
it had the effect of like making me not feel like it was a 3 hour movie.
I was just gonna say
So
that. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. For me, I've never really noticed that. Like, I get what you're saying. I know there was a thing about like you don't know what Bane is saying, and like in Dunkirk, it's like hard to hear what the pilots are saying. But I've never really noticed that in general for like any movie. I know when it's a criticism of a movie, especially for these ones that we've been talking about. I don't know if it's just because I'm like always so laser focused on what everyone's saying. Like I really don't want to miss a word, so I really focus, and it doesn't matter if it's muffled or anything or the volume goes down. That I just don't don't take it in. One thing that will come up later that when I don't understand is something like Tenet when I just full out don't understand the movie. But we'll get into that.
When you guys when you guys do a rewatch of film or TV, do you guys watch with captions on or captions off?
So
On.
yeah, like
I'm on all the
because
time.
because my wife is like English second language, like we have subtitles on all the time anyway. Like she speaks English just
Yeah.
fine, but like we usually just have it on. So I've kind of gotten used to just watching movies like that, even on like first run, which it very much impacts the experience. Like the art of writing subtitles is an art of itself, because I think there's sometimes where you're not supposed to understand what the character is saying in a movie, and then when you see the subtitles, it's like it kind of takes away that mystery of it. And then sometimes you do catch things that you wouldn't have caught the other time, and it actually makes it better because you've understood. So it's a bit of a trade-off, but there's definitely some movies that are better subtitles than other. Um, and when I download any or watch any like international movies and you get like the illegitimate subtitles that aren't proper English, obviously that negatively impacts the experience.
Yeah. I'm very much pro subtitle now. I'm in the same boat as you, where my fiance is English as a second language too, and we're all subtitles now all the time. And I just feel like it's completely changed how I watch TV and film. Like to the point where I'm going to see Oppenheimer in theaters and expecting there to be subtitles. I'm just like, where are the subtitles? Like I can't watch this movie without subtitles, but I definitely will upon rewatch just to see if I missed anything the first time.
But that's a good shout out. Tenet is on Netflix, so you can go watch Tenet for the first time with
Oh yeah, there you
subtitles
go.
on.
I wonder how long is that one? Tenet.
It's
Seems
long.
like it's pretty long.
It's another like 3 hour, I think. But about
Well,
the subtitles, do you ever like with as a subtitles on guy, do you ever get annoyed like maybe you read too fast and then you get to the point where they haven't said the line yet, but you know what's about to happen? Does that kind of like ruin things for you?
that
Yeah,
yeah.
especially like around like punchlines and stuff, or
Yeah.
like jokes. Like that, like that's pretty tough. Um, you get used to it though. It's just kind of there, like for me, like as a backup or like a security blanket in case like I really can't understand something. Or if I'm watching something like very late at night and people are sleeping and I just want to, you know, put something on because I want to be comfortable and I'll have the subtitles on. But yeah, it does ruin jokes sometimes, unfortunately.
But that's what I mean is like writing subtitles is an art in itself, because if you know that the people can read ahead you shouldn't have like your 2 lines of subtitles where people can read. You should display it like 1 line at a time so that like the people reading it kind of experience it in the same way. And I remember I went to watch at the Toronto International Film Festival a few years ago. There's that Sound of Metal movie that ended up getting nominated for Best Picture. That's about like guy becoming deaf later in life, and like the director introduced the film at the beginning, and he was saying like the subtitles were very specifically chosen in a way that somebody who was deaf and reading the movie experienced it in the same way as like somebody who was just listening to it. And so like I feel like nowadays, especially with more international audiences, like I'm hoping that becomes a more developed art where people learn to like write subtitles in a way that enhances your experience. And I think Netflix shows are good with that, I find. Like Netflix original, like I feel like their subtitles, not just explaining the words, but also like having the words that explain like what sounds are going on. Like I find that
Really good.
they do it better. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of shows I was watching, I forget which ones, where the characters are just going like, and the closed captioning says blows raspberries. And
Yeah.
I almost like spit out my drink. I'm like, blows raspberries, really? Like it's a really funny closed caption. And like whenever I do that now, I always think to myself, blows raspberries, like on the closed captioning. But yeah, I agree. You're getting very descriptive and very good.
So we're starting to talk about some of other Christopher Nolan's movies. Do we want to hop into that part of the conversation, or do you guys have any closing comments on Oppenheimer?
Um, I guess like I mean this I think may open a can of worms, but um like philosophically, like do you think like the movie did anything to impact like the legacy of both nuclear weapons and like the like then proliferation of nuclear weapons around the world? Like how do you feel that movie kind of handled that? I know we talked about it a bit at the beginning, but curious to hear your takes on it.
I think with the attention span of the world these days, that people are going to be interested this summer, and then nobody's going to care again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I will say like the ending um definitely was scary. Um just putting that thought in your head or like after building to it the entire movie. So it's like definitely effective in that moment, but like is anything going to change? Probably not from from Oppenheimer. Um yeah.
I think that's one thing as a recent recently becoming a parent that I think about a little bit more, because when I've grown up and kind of just thought about like how this impacts me, it's like it probably won't happen in my lifetime. But then when you think about having like a kid, it's like, oh, is it going to happen in her lifetime? But to be honest, I feel like I'm pretty pessimistic about the future. Like I think an apocalypse is coming. But I don't think it's a atomic bomb apocalypse. Like I think it's, global warming. We've already passed the tipping point on that. We're just going to have like worse and worse storms and rising sea tides and famines, and it's like the world is going to go that way. But yeah, I think like I do ask myself those questions more when I see movies that pose that question, just because of like that angle.
Yeah, I mean like I do find it interesting and nice, I guess, amidst like how negative things are often, that there seems to be like the one gentleman's agreement among the entire world that no one's going to use nukes on each other. Like everyone has them. You know, a lot of countries have them and they can use them, but they just don't because they know how bad it is. That's like the one thing that's surprisingly nice. I guess nice they have them, but which is not nice, but they don't use them, which is nice.
It really just freaks me out though, like how many there are out there in the world. Like there are like I think hundreds of thousands of nukes out there on planet Earth, and like that really freaks me out. But I try not to think about that. And Oppenheimer did make me think about it, but to Carson's point, I forgot about it until this podcast.
Yeah.
In terms of how scary there are, like it's also extraordinary when you start reading about some of the defense systems that are out there that like can automatically shoot down missiles and stuff like that. So it's like the technology to defend from these things has also advanced as well, thankfully.
Would that help with a nuke though? That's more of like I don't know. I'm okay. I'm going into territory that I know nothing about, so I shouldn't say, say anything.
Paulo, any last comments, or is that a wrap for Oppenheimer?
No one wants to address the controversy about censoring Florence Pugh's nakedness.
Oh, because of the Bhagavad Gita,
Sorry?
because of like the Hindu reading that was happening at the same time.
Oh, actually, yeah, that was another thing too, apparently, but mostly just because she was naked.
It was kind of interesting to see a Christopher Nolan movie where he went like hard R rating on some of these things, because like he keeps his movies pretty PG-13, and I didn't even realize that
Mm.
this was rated R. So when that came up, I was like, oh, that's kind of like unexpected. And then I saw the controversy like a day later of like, oh, some countries don't want to even show it in the movie, so they CGI clothes on her. And I was like,
Yeah, which is it's always the dumbest thing for me. Like, there's always like so many exaggerations leading up to a movie, but this would like Oppenheimer in particular, I think is because of like the marketing arms race between Oppenheimer and Barbie that just like everything had to like all the news had to upstage each other. And then like the week leading up to it, Oppenheimer was like, oh, this is the best movie of all time. Like we watched it, we got an advanced screening. This is literally the best movie ever. And like Florence Pugh and Cillian Murphy are like having sex for 30 minutes, all naked. You see his dick and everything. And it's like, and then you watch the movie and it's like nothing. Well, maybe I'm desensitized, but it's like, I mean, I
It,
get it kind of. It's and it's for a purpose though, which is like when they're in the middle of the hearing,
mhm.
and then Oppenheimer is talking about how he cheated on his wife, and it's from her view, which is supposed to be like disturbing for her, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
it was
It's
appropriate to the story. Like,
yeah.
agreed.
It wasn't gratuitous for the sake of just like, oh, look at her tits.
Yeah, it wasn't Halle Berry and Swordfish.
Yeah. Oh wow, I completely forgot about that movie.
Wild, man. It's so bad, but worth a rewatch for how bad it is.
That was a hard left turn from Christopher Nolan and Oppenheimer. Who would have thought we'd bring up Swordfish?
all right, I'm gonna transition us to the second half of the conversation, which is Christopher Nolan has now made 11 feature-length films. We are now going to do a ranking of all of them. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to talk about. So there's 11. We're all going to say what our number 11 is, and then we're all going to say what our number 10 is, and we're going to kind of figure out how we talk about each one as we go along. Obviously, hopefully, there's going to be some difference of opinion here. We do not know each other's lists, so we don't know what people think about at this point. But I will get into it by simply saying our first entry on the list, you guys have not seen. I have seen, and it's my least favorite, so we're not really going to talk about it that much, which is the movie Insomnia. If you have not seen Insomnia, like you two guys, I do recommend it. It's still like the worst Christopher Nolan movie is still a really good movie. And it was early in his career, but it was a year after Memento, so he was still like he was making good movies at that time. Pretty good performance by Al Pacino. It's kind of got those same like psychological angles that Memento has. I think Memento is probably most what I would compare it to in like his filmography. But that said, it's not like Christopher Nolan has a certain gravitas that he has in all his movies, and like Insomnia is not that. It's very just like here's a standard, pretty good movie, um, but not much to talk about there.
So the only thing I will say about Insomnia is that I mixed it up originally. So the whole reason why I didn't see it is I thought I had already seen it because Robin Williams is in it, and I mixed it up with 15-minute Photo, I think, which is another movie that Robin Williams is in.
Oh,
Uh, is that what it's called? Where
He was
he's like,
it was like 30 or
or,
60-minute photo or something like that. Yeah.
where
yeah,
he's the killer, right?
Hmm.
he's not really oh no, sorry, 1 hour photo. He's not a killer. He's just like he works at like some pharmacy developing photos, and then he gets like obsessed with a certain family, like from developing and looking at their photos. And then it turns out in the end, oh, spoiler alert, it turns out in the end that he's like he was abused as a kid, and that's why he's all the way he is. But I thought Insomnia was that movie, and I was like, yeah, I've seen this. I can talk about it. And then it wasn't.
It came out the same year as Insomnia, so there you go, to add to the confusion.
Yeah, he was doing that like serious time in his career where he didn't want to be the comedian anymore. But the kind of last thing I'll say about Insomnia is like part of it is he goes to Alaska where they basically don't have nighttime for certain months of the year because the sun doesn't drop below the horizon. So it becomes more of like a psychological of like, are these weird things going on, or is he going crazy because he can't sleep and like all this stuff? So it does have some interesting, like, again, paralleling it to Memento of like putting you in the person's shoes of what they feel like going through that experience, not just like the story itself. Um, but yeah, it's all right.
I am still gonna watch it.
Yeah, it's worth watching.
Me too.
So let's get started, I guess, with the rest of our list then at number 10. Um, Tony, you're the only one who didn't see 10, so maybe you can comment on yours just through your lack of having seen it, which I guess we've already spoiled in the last conversation.
Yeah, it'll be Tenet at number 10. I do want to watch it, but please feel free to drop spoilers if you guys have a similar ranking at 10. I don't mind, but I definitely will endeavor to watch it. I do want to watch it, and I do generally enjoy his film, so we'll try to watch it.
I would definitely highly recommend it. Like I can comfortably speak about it and why I ranked it at 10 without spoiling anything, partly because I still to this day don't fully understand it. Um, I and this is going to be a theme throughout the whole rest of the list. Like they're ranked in order, yes, but the margin between a lot of them is like nothing. Like they're all I like all of these movies. I'm not ranking Tenet number 10 because I don't like it as much as I still don't understand it. I respect the attempt and just like what he was doing and just how different it was, and it was still enjoyable to watch. Um but it loses major points for being a little too convoluted to just kind of casually enjoy.
Yeah, I don't have 10 at that low, so I'll talk about it a bit more in a few more spots. But I would say, like, my general impression of Tenet is just don't worry about the details too much. Like, I think what people don't like is they had a hard time following along because there's just so much, like, convoluted shit that's going on. But I think it's better experience if you just sit back and be like, okay, I'm going to vaguely be aware of what the details are and I'm going to emotionally follow this movie. And I think if you do that, there's some fun characters, there's some fun like set pieces, and you can just like enjoy those for what it is. And then like after the movie, you can read about it and be like, oh, I missed that thing, I missed that thing. And it's like, it's okay that you missed it during the movie. It didn't interfere with your enjoyment of it.
Yeah, and that's how I enjoy it. The only thing I will say is like even after reading like all those articles, like oh, Tenet explained, ending explained, all that stuff, there's still parts of it that I just can't wrap my head around. And I get the story. It all makes sense from beginning to end. It's just the extra stuff that I really want to know. I just can't get it. And I don't think I'm a dumb person.
But my number 10 movie, which you don't have to talk about too much because we just talked about it a whole lot, is Oppenheimer.
What?
And
Ooh,
I will echo your statement on they're all very good movies and they're all very close. So like
I saved
I
yourself.
still quite enjoyed the movie, but I enjoyed all the other ones more. So it's not to say that it's a bad movie. I just like, again, the fact that it wasn't wrapped up in a nice bow for me, the fact that it's like, what's the point of this movie? It came down to like, here's a more of like good individual scenes and individual performances as opposed to like some of his other things. I think just come together a bit more.
There's uh, I don't know if I'm jumping too far ahead here, but Tony, do you where are is this close to where you're? I'm assuming it's not close to where your rating for Oppenheimer was, but how like high is it on your list? Because I feel like we could just get out of the way right now.
it's not in the top three, um,
Okay,
but it is in my top five.
okay. I had it second. There's definitely a bit of recency
Wow.
bias there, but I I I stand by that, at least for
All
now.
right. Well, we'll get into that, I guess.
Okay.
Let's keep the same order going. So Tony and then Paul then me for what's your number 9 selection?
Yeah, number 9 is Dark Knight Rises. For the reasons we discussed previously, the audio stuff with Bane being the main villain, really would like a more clear, like crisper, like resolution on that voice coming out of Bane. Like you might as well have been Bane from Batman and Robin. I mean, obviously it's Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy's great, but really tough to follow along in the movie when you can't understand what Bane's saying. And genuinely, I feel like I wasn't satisfied with the movie as a whole, as a conclusion to the trilogy that he did. I really didn't like the inclusion of Talia al Ghul. Um, really didn't care for like the plot as a whole, with Bane being the main guy and then Talia like being that prisoner in that weird prison camp that Bruce was taken to, and Bruce literally breaks his back and he just does 10 push-ups and he's fine. So like yeah, you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit, but overall, was not satisfied with the film as a whole.
I am a big fan of Dark Knight Rises,
Oof.
very much. So I think Dark Knight Rises suffered a lot from expectations as well, because you have Batman Begins and then Dark Knight, which basically was like in the process of revolutionizing the entire like comic book movie, which is still a genre that's going on today. And then Dark Knight Rises was a bit adventurous on how they wanted to do things. They didn't want to do cinematic universe. They were a bit more like they wanted to close off and tell a story. They made changes to some of the characters. I think people weren't ready for it, but if you sit back and just watch it as its own movie, I think it's quite good and has a lot of like fun things that don't get explored enough in like comic book movies today. So it's definitely higher on my list than number 9.
It's slightly higher on my list than number 9. But I disagree a bit, well, quite a bit with with how you feel about it, Tony. I went into the movie just like with the attitude like, oh my god, this is all awesome, like this is amazing. Is there a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense? Yes, 100%. Like you mentioned the weird prison where Bane somehow flies him to somewhere in the Middle East, drops him in a hole, he heals his back, escapes, leaves the desert, flies back to Gotham all in the span of like a day. Yeah, that is like the biggest red flag for me. But other than that, like I enjoyed it from beginning to end. That being said, it's only one rank higher. My number 9 is actually Batman Begins.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're going to need to justify that one.
I mean, it's it's probably the least memorable for me. I think it's still a good movie. I actually that's pretty much just that's what it hinges on. I know it's a good movie. I remember it, but like there's nothing in particular that stands out about it that makes me like elevate it over some of the other ones. Is that a satisfactory reasoning for you?
I think it does a really good job of establishing like a very strong foothold for the trilogy. I actually recently watched it a couple of days ago. And sure, Katie Holmes's performance aside, and maybe like a bit of the ending aside, um, like the first like hour of establishing like Christian Bale as Batman and him kind of like working with Liam Neeson there for a little bit, like it's amazing. I really like that piece of it, and I quite enjoyed that in the beginning. It's a bit higher on the list for me. Not that much higher, albeit, but definitely a little higher than where you have it, Paulo.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
I definitely enjoyed that slow build, and I think that came out in those years where like every superhero movie was an origin story, and I think people have started to get sick of that, and they've started to like want to do other things, and you see characters being introduced in Marvel and whatnot that it's like they're already like Spider-Man never had an origin story with Holland or whatever his name is. It was just like, hey, here he is, and now we're going to do the adventures. But I'm a sucker for the origin story still, and I think Batman Begins was probably one of the best versions of it out there.
I imagine it's pretty high on Carson's list.
It's definitely a few spots higher.
Okay.
My number 9 is Dunkirk.
Oh.
And it's just like, again, a bunch of good individual stories. And I understand the theme that it's coming together around, but it's like Tom Hardy has his like fun little thing that's going on, and Harry Styles has his little fun thing that's going on. And it's like, I get that the theme that they're talking about in regards to war and what the point of all this was and blah, blah, blah. But it just like, for me, it was, again, they're all very good movies. It's not like I didn't enjoy it, but it was just like I enjoyed being in the theater for 2 or 3 hours or however long it was, and then I left the theater and didn't really care after that.
All right. That's Tony. I think you had the biggest reaction to that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spoil too much of my rankings to come later on, but I really quite enjoyed Dunkirk. It I feel like I lost years of my life with watching that movie in the theaters. It was just such a tense like film going experience for me. Um, Not like least because like just a brilliant score and like that constant kind of building of tension that the score made you feel when you're watching the movie. And I think that really contributed to my enjoyment of the film. Like story aside, I think what you're saying, Carson, is valid. That they're like these little vignettes that sure they're all really well done, but as a cohesive story doesn't necessarily come together maybe as much as other films do. But um, it did evoke a feeling for me when I was watching it that I don't think many of his other films have evoked for me when I was watching it in film in theaters.
Yeah, I think for me it comes down to like when I look at the list I have here, the top 5 or 6 movies are like masterpieces, and there's things that set them apart, and there's like there's things that take them over the top, and then there's like the bottom 5, which are just like they're good movies, but there's just nothing to get me really excited about them. And I think that's how I feel about Dunkirk. Is like I'm not going to say a lot of bad things about it. It's just like there's nothing that really makes me excited about it as a whole.
Sorry, and this is 9, right?
We're currently at number 9. Yes.
Okay, I'm getting confused now.
I'm writing these down so I can make an Instagram post of this after. So I'm trying to keep track.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to number 8. Tony, what do you got in number 8?
Number 8, I'm gonna go with the Prestige on this one.
Oh,
It's a great movie. I really enjoyed this movie quite a bit, and it's a favorite of my fiance's as well. Particularly, I loved David Bowie's turn as Nikola Tesla, and I love that whole scene. It's awesome. But it's just not really a memorable film for me. I would definitely go back and watch it again for sure. But there are other films on this list that I think I would watch sooner than The Prestige. And another movie came out at the same time as The Prestige. I think it was called
It was like Paul Giamatti or something, some other magician.
yeah,
The
no, it was
Illusionist.
yeah, The
Yeah.
Illusionist with Edward Norton and Paul Giamatti. I remember watching that movie first before The Prestige, and so I think it kind of soured my experience by the time I watched The Prestige, and just like another magician movie that takes place in like the 1800s or something, like great. So I think that took it down a few notches for me, and I did really like The Illusionist when I watched it the first time. But that'd actually be an interesting side by side to do The Prestige and Illusionist back to back and see how they hold up. But that's why it's so low for me, despite David Bowie's amazing turn as Tesla.
Oof. Okay, so by that same theme, like with the dynamic between the Prestige and the Illusionist, what did you like better, Armageddon or Deep Impact?
Oh my god, it's been a really long time since I've seen both. So I'm just gonna say Armageddon out of respect for Bruce Willis.
Okay.
I have the
Am I next,
Prestige
Carson?
significantly higher, so I'm going to save comments on that one.
I have it fairly high as well. My number 8 was number 8, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Dark Knight Rises. Did I say that already?
Nope.
I'm getting so lost. The Prestige I really like. I think it's going to be above a movie that may surprise you. It's usually, and it's not the type of thing that I usually am super interested in, but just like the like them going back and forth and like them trying to kind of upstage each other and figure out each other's tricks. I really enjoyed that. Like that was a lot of fun for me, and the twist was like mind blasting. It's a movie that I often recommend when there's someone who like knows a lot of Christopher Nolan but hasn't seen like everything. It's a bit of a go-to for me.
Are you talking about Dark Knight Rises or The Prestige still?
Sorry, The Prestige. I'm talking about The Prestige.
Okay. Do you have any comments on Dark Knight Rises?
I mean, nothing from what I've already said. Like it's pretty much summed up from when I was like, oh, I went into it like, oh, this is all awesome. even though some of it didn't make sense. Bane was
All right.
super cool. The what's it called? The trend of like talking like Bane was a lot of fun, like talking to your mug. I had a lot of fun with that, but it's still fairly low on my list compared to his other movies.
All right. Well, I'll talk about Dark Knight Rises shortly. My number 8, which we've already talked about a couple times, Tenet. So Tenet was a little bit higher than you guys. You guys both had it at 10. I have it at number at 8. Just because, like, I think similar to Dunkirk, like it just didn't really wrap up properly. Like there's a lot going on. It was a little bit convoluted. I enjoyed a lot of like the individual characters, like Robert Pattinson, who I've sung praises on this podcast many times about. Did a great job. John David Washington did a phenomenal job in that entire movie. So like, again, a lot of good individual performances and like really fun set pieces that made it feel like something different, like just different approaches to how you do an action scene. The whole like things going in reverse while they're going forward was just like interesting. So um, even though it didn't piece together for me, it was just like a really fun experience. So good enough to get to number 8, not good enough to get much higher than that.
You know, actually, I'm breaking rules here, but I feel like the more I think about Tenet and the more I remember it, I feel like I've penalized it too much for my own ignorance. And I think it jumps above like Batman Begins and Dark Knight Rises. So I think that puts it at like 8 or 7 for me too. But
I got too many notes on my page, so when I do the Instagram post, it's staying at number 10 for you.
that's fine. That's fine.
All right, we're moving on to number 7 now. Tony, what do you got at number 7?
The Dark Knight.
Ooh.
Oh, you got to
Um,
explain this one.
I I grew up obviously like watching the Batman animated series. I grew up watching like the original Batman movies too. Like I'm not here to say and wax poetic that I think Jack Nicholson's performance as the Joker was better than Heath Ledger's. It wasn't. It was totally different, and I appreciate his performance just like I appreciate Heath Ledger's. I just think that there are two very weak performances in The Dark Knight that it's really hard for me to now watch The Dark Knight and view it as a masterpiece when I think Aaron Eckhart's performance and Maggie Gyllenhaal's performances, like they flat out don't do it for me. I think they really suck in this movie. And I also don't like the romantic ties between Bruce and Maggie Gyllenhaal's character. And I don't like how like that kind of sets up like Aaron Eckhart's origin story as Two Face and how he's like pressed with this decision to make. Like, does he save Aaron Eckhart? Does he save Maggie Gyllenhaal's character? Um, it just didn't really do it for me, and that really weighs the movie down for me and puts it so low. That being said, we'll still rewatch it, a million times over. We'll still be happy to watch it. We've said it a million times throughout. Like, it's not a bad movie. None of these are bad films. It's just it's lower than Batman Begins for me. I'm a real sucker, as Carson said, for origin stories, for beginnings. I do like Batman Begins more than Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, but those performances in Dark Knight really weigh it down for me.
That's a pretty hot take, backed
Yeah.
up by decent reasoning.
I'll agree with you on Maggie Gyllenhaal, like especially because they recast the character. Like she felt out of place in that movie. Completely different. Disagree on Aaron Eckhart. I thought he nailed that role. Especially with like how Two Face had been done in the past as kind of like a goofy character and kind of made it a bit more sympathetic. I don't know. I loved his performance.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I don't want to spoil where I put it, but it's significantly higher.
It's a bit higher for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would take like everything that I said about Dark Knight Rises and multiply it by 50, and that's how I feel about Dark Knight. Actually, the good stuff I'd multiply by 50. The stuff that doesn't make sense, I'd only multiply that by like 1.5.
Yeah, I
Which
was
is why
thinking
it's so
about
high
these
up for me.
rankings in advance, and like when it comes to the Dark Knight, like I had to try to convince myself it wasn't as good as it is because it holds a certain place of nostalgia for me. Just like I think I was 18, 19 when it came out, and it's like I don't know, in the same way that The Phantom Menace came out at the perfect time for the age that I was. Like I was that target audience. Like Dark Knight came out at kind of that perfect time in my life where it kind of like revolutionized what I thought about comic book movies and what they could be. And I kind of had to like ask myself like, okay, was it that good? Like, were these things like you're just imagining them better than they are? So I did some thinking about that, and I'll get on later to how high I ended up putting it. But yeah, it's not just the movie for me. It's like there's something special about it for me.
I will say I'll take away points for how much it made weird guys love the Joker. In not that like he was a great Joker, Heath Ledger did great, but like there's like a group of people who like made that this is who I am now. And
Yeah.
I take that away, that I hold that against The Dark Knight. That being said, obviously Heath Ledger's performance amazing, the Joker is amazing in the movie, and I think the marketing behind it when the first like 5 minutes or so, like the bank heist at the beginning, was screened before other movies, was like the best endorsement of that movie that Christopher Nolan ever could have done. That I think that just uh, that exploded the hype for me, and it just made the movie even more exciting to watch at the time.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how even Joaquin Phoenix's Joker has like the same attachment, like people have the same attachment to it. And it's like you guys may have missed the point of these characters a little bit.
They're not good people.
But there wasn't the same attachment with Jack Nicholson's Joker, I feel like, back in the
Definitely
day.
not.
Yeah, he played it a very different way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a literal clown almost. Well, not a literal clown, but um, I get there's like connections to how society is and oh, uh, life is hard, that kind of thing. But like you're going a little too far there with the idolization of the Joker.
It's weird with like how many different adaptations of the Joker we've had now and how many people have taken it to the extreme, and like they've still never done a comic like accurate version of the Joker. Like it's still everything is very different than what you see in the comics.
Unless except for the animated ones.
Yeah, like the animateds get it a little bit better.
Yeah.
All right, Paul, what's your number 7?
11, 10, 9, 8, 7. My number 7 is Dunkirk. Middle of the pack. I guess this is gonna sound like just a horrible thing to say, but I want no, I can't even say it. I was gonna say I want a little more war in my war movies. I'll walk that back a little and say like as a cinematic experience, like as a film, it's great. Like I recognize that. I guess I had the wrong expectations. I was like looking for a little more action. Um, and the one thing that not confused me, but I felt was unnecessary, but in the long run, I feel like, okay, it made sense, is the whole splitting up the different stories in different lengths of time is like 1 day, 1 week, 1 hour, like between the pilots and like the guys on the beach and stuff like that. I mean, I get what he was doing, but I felt like I remember at the time watching Dunkirk, I was like, Christopher Nolan can't just do a straight end-to-end movie. Like he has to have something like some weird quirk about it or something like really like a twist or something. And I was like, this is the one for this one. And it took me out of it a little bit. It's like minor nitpick, but yeah, otherwise like I said, as a film, it's great. But not what I was hoping for, and it was fine. I enjoyed it. At the end, it was kind of like similar to what Carson said. It was just like I walked out like going, it's good.
And it may have also suffered by coming out in recent, like also in recent years, 1917 and All Quiet on the Western Front, which in my opinion were better World War One movies. I don't like. I think this one came out first, so you wouldn't have been thinking about that while going in. But looking back on it, I think that kind of influences it a bit for me as well.
Yeah, but I mean, to your point, the second I watched 1917, I completely forgot about Dunkirk. So that I think that definitely strengthens the argument.
1917 has a little more war in your war movie for you.
just want to see people dying and people suffering. Is that too much to ask?
Uh, okay, my number 7, Dark Knight Rises. A little higher than you guys, not too much higher. It's still like the least good of the Batman trilogy. Again, I liked it better when I watched it like 2 or 3 years after it came out in theaters because I think I was a little disappointed. But just like seeing the things of them actually killing off, a superhero at the end, which I don't believe that he survived. I believe they actually killed him off. I interpret that ending differently. Um, the Bane like twist and the Talia al Ghul, like I thought those were appropriate. I kind of liked those stories that they had going there, and just like apocalyptic Gotham City. Like I love when they like a lot of movies threaten apocalyptic city, and so like to see someone actually go through it and go through with it and be like, what would it actually be like? And then they show the fake courtrooms that Scarecrow runs, like in the comics. Like I love those aspects of the comics, so to see that on the screen was great. Um, and yeah, just even like the police chief and his little like story that he had during it, like really good movie. It's still at number 7, so it's not like everything 1 to 6 is like masterpiece for me. So this is kind of like right on the edge, not quite a masterpiece, but not as bad as other people think it is, in my opinion.
Can I just say that's a great record for like 7 of your 11 feature-length movies are like masterpieces
Yeah.
by Carson standards. That's
Well,
that's
number 6
amazing.
is going to be debatable here. Number 6 has lots of problems, but we'll get to that in a couple minutes.
Okay,
Uh,
okay.
Tony, what's your number 6?
I'm gonna put Inception at number 6.
Oh,
Wow.
Like great, great theater going experience, and like similar to my experience with Interstellar. Pretty sure I was high as a kite when I saw this in the theater. It was wonderful. Completely blew my mind. I don't feel that it has like great rewatch value, especially just knowing that like you know what's going to happen, you know the twist, you know that Maul is sort of like a bit crazy, and you know what to expect with that. From our previous conversation on this podcast, I do like that the ending is obviously up to interpretation, and I do appreciate that that happened and we didn't get that in Oppenheimer. But I still have it at number 6. Just I don't. I'm not running to rewatch it anytime soon. I will, but it doesn't have like very high rewatch value for me.
wow, that's interesting. Like especially with the rewatch value, I'll disagree with that because I will watch that like over and over again. It's not so much like the twist. I feel like the twist is a lesser part of Inception rather than like a really well built concept and like just something so potentially complicated, but being able to tell the story around that and still have it make sense, I think really elevates it for me. I'm taking personal offense because um um I'm just gonna say it's my number one. Um so there's
That's fine.
I'm joking. I don't take offense, but like I disagree quite a bit with with the ranking. I don't know. It's just, and I think it's one of the, even though I'd seen other Christopher Nolan movies before it, I think it was at the time it was like the first next level, just like something that you've really never ever seen before type movie for me. Um, and it was just like, and it was that, but also accessible. Like it was just, it's like a mainstream movie like that to that level. I'm not even making sense anymore. That's how upset I am. No, just kidding.
Yeah, I am similarly upset, and it's going to be much higher on my list. Disagree with basically everything you said about it. It kind of like, in my opinion, it's almost so good that it made Tenet and some of the other things worse because Tenet is like a really high concept movie that's really fun, but it doesn't tie itself together. And it's like if there wasn't an example of a movie out there that did tie itself together, you could just say, "Oh, high concept, just go with the flow." But it's like Inception is out there. Inception is that super high concept, and you wrap it together and you have it make sense emotionally and story wise and sci-fi wise and set piece wise. So I'm going to talk about this more before I go on a rant again. But yes, needless to say, a little bit higher opinion than you.
Tony, I appreciate your perspective. I swear we didn't bring you on here just to rip you apart.
No, and that's totally fair. And I'm completely willing to admit that I could completely be wrong on Inception. I want to rewatch a lot of these movies, especially now knowing your rankings and where you're going to place them. I think it'll give me a different perspective on them too. So I'm pretty keen to rewatch Inception as well, and maybe do a re-ranking of my own.
You can never be wrong about your own rankings. Your opinion is your opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably going to make Carson really mad soon, but we'll get to that. And I'm going to stand by it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Inception later, so we can move on to your number 6 then.
11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. My number 6 is Memento. This is where I think this is around the territory where all of these are. I know we said at the beginning they're all really good movies. Number 6 to 1 is like, for me, they're all amazing movies. Memento falls victim to the recency bias that I mentioned a little bit. It's been a long time. That being said, I still remember the twist. I still remember the story and everything, and like how the story was told was amazing, even at that age that I watched it, which is not normally the type of thing that I would watch. Like I would be watching normally Starship Troopers or something just to watch bugs get blown up. And then I remember Memento blowing my mind. That being said, it's just I mean I just enjoy the other movies better on my list. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. So I guess. All right. A little lower than I thought, but that's okay.
I knew it. I said it right before I gave my ranking.
It's not as high as you would think on mine, but I mean, like, we don't have that many left to go. Like, I'm not. I can see why people like, especially with what people expect of Christopher Nolan today. If Christopher Nolan released Memento today, people would be like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, it's not 3 hours long. It doesn't have this climax scene. Like, it's completely different, but it's very grounded in like those psychological elements that make it just really interesting with how he shot it. That makes you feel like you are how the main character feels. So
yeah, I don't know. I feel like if it was released today, like people, like everyone with no memory or no idea that Memento exists, if it was released today, I think it would still do really well.
I think it would do really well.
It'd
just
be
people
refreshing.
wouldn't expect it. Yeah.
Well, I think it'd be refreshing. People are expecting, like you said, Carson, like a 3-hour, long movie from Christopher Nolan that's super hard to follow. Memento, like, it's not. I mean, from what you're describing, it's not Tenet hard to follow, and like does have a non-linear perspective on the storyline, but at least it's an hour and a half.
Yeah, and I think one thing that kind of works against it today, like if it were released today, obviously I think the cloud would solve a lot of his problems, or just have being able to save information somewhere. So maybe it wouldn't hold up as well unless it was like a period piece, or you just watch original Memento.
All right, so my number 6, which is the only movie that none of us have mentioned so far, and this is the one that's, I would say, not quite masterpiece. Everything above this, I would say, is definite masterpiece. This one is borderline, is Interstellar. There is a lot of things I love about Interstellar, like just the design, obviously, like the soundtrack I listen to all the time. For me, the one thing that just really holds it back is like, what the fuck's going on at the ending, and like, not just because I'm okay with plot being confusing, but it's like to say, oh, it's all about love. Like, it's like, what the fuck? It annoys me because it was such a good movie until that point, and like, I just like fell so flat. But like, so I have to rewatch it and just like not care about the ending because there's so many good things going on in that movie. Just the last 10-15 minutes I don't like.
It did come out of left field, like the whole like love stuff. I mean, you could argue that there were themes peppered throughout the movie about love, like, oh, he loves Murph, and Casey Affleck loves his family to the point where he'll let them suffocate and die from the dust storms or whatever.
And so
But I
similar to
mean,
what we've said about other movies, like I do appreciate that it is tied together. Like it is like, hey, you took all these things and made it make sense. I just disagree with what you wrapped it up with.
yeah, it's fair. I disagree, but it's fair.
But yeah, borderline masterpiece. Still extremely good, and again, like probably one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard.
Yes, that's a big plus. Tony, I'm curious to where, because not like Carson said, none of us have mentioned this one yet. I'm curious to where you put Interstellar.
It's in my top three. I was telling my boss today at work that when I saw this, similar to my experience with Inception, it was borderline like a religious experience for me in theaters. Like I was like flying out of my seats, either from the weed cookie that I had an hour before I watched it, or just because of the plot. And I agree with Carson's points on the soundtrack, but I'm also just a sucker for like dystopian like fiction and novels and sci-fi as well. So I really like the depiction of like an Earth that's failing, the crops are failing, like we need to leave, like it's really bad. And I do, see that as our future. I'm also a pessimist. I share, Carson's views on that. So I really think it's not refreshing, but I think it's more realistic to have a movie from when did it come out? 2012,
2014.
2014 depict 2014 depict a movie be like, or the Earth be like that. So it's only going to be more real and creepier to rewatch that movie in the years to come. Just knowing what's going to unfold on planet Earth in the years to come.
The one thing that I think is kind of prophetic about how the apocalypse might happen on Earth, not if but how, is like Michael Caine's character basically realizing there's no solution and just trying to find a way to keep humanity sane and working towards a common goal while we die out. It's like I can see that happening. Although I wonder if humanity has enough discipline to like even do that much. But it's like,
Jeez, it's getting dark. um, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm more on the same page as you, Tony, for Interstellar. I mean, I fully understand the whole like love stuff coming out of nowhere in the last 15 minutes. And Anne Hathaway, she's really trying to sell it with her little monologue at the end. But I mean, I think everything else about the movie is enough and cool enough and enjoyable enough for me to just to elevate it and look past that part. And it was touched on already, but the soundtrack, I absolutely love the soundtrack for Interstellar. It's I have most of it on my Apple Music, and it's just like atmospheric noise.
the so there's that one meme that's online where it's like, oh, Hans, can you just make like a casual soundtrack for us for a docking scene? And then it has that meme of like the guy on like the piano on the beach like on fire. And it annoys me when anyone uses that meme for anything other than Hans Zimmer in Interstellar, because that's the only movie that justifies like that meme.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Duel of the Fates may be a close second, but like everything else is like you picked the wrong song. It's like I saw that meme, somebody used it for the Super Mario Brothers movie for Jack Black's like song of Peaches,
Oh,
and it's
Peaches.
like, come on, don't even compare.
Okay, that's fair when you put it like that.
All right, I think we're at number 5 with Tony.
Yeah, we've already talked about it ad nauseum, but Oppenheimer is number 5 for me. I just enjoyed the other movies that are in my top 4 way more than Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was still wonderful. We've already talked about it. Great cast, top to bottom. My only critique on it, and I didn't really touch on this at the beginning, was just that I can appreciate a biopic, I can appreciate the source material, but I enjoyed the other movies in my top 4 for their originality, and I'm sure they were based on something, maybe at least a little bit, but the fact that it's a biopic kind of weighs it down for me a little bit, but still very well done. But I'm not going to put it in my top 4 or top 3.
That's fair.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to add anything to Oppenheimer, even though it's
Yeah, we've
I haven't
talked about
mentioned
it.
it yet. But I've also said my piece about The Prestige. That's my number 5. Um, um, I don't need to add anything about it. If you're listening and I know you and you're looking for a movie recommendation, Prestige.
Wow. Didn't expect Prestige to go that low for both of you. Interesting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got it quite a bit higher. Although
Oh,
we are getting in the top half of the list here, so I don't know. Any other comments on Prestige?
no.
Okay. My number 5 is Batman Begins. Again, really solid movie. Just hard to justify it like any higher than this. It's more a result of just like my top 4 are just I just love that much more. Um, Probably also this high because I'm like a DC fanboy, and so just like having them do such good things with so many characters. Yeah, we talked about it a bunch. I'm not going to add too much more. It's just a really solid origin story that gets the characters right, and I love when comic book movies were grounded. There's those recent screenshots of Wolverine in the new Deadpool movie where he's like yellow, and people are like, "Oh, it's so amazing to see like comic book characters in like the comic origin suits." But like, I loved when X-Men had like black leather suits, and I loved in like everything in Batman Begins was like dark and gritty and realistic. So hopefully the world gets there. They're full of color for the next 4 or 5 years, and then we can go back to these gritty movies at some point.
I think we're so number 4 for Tony.
Number 4, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, number 4, Batman Begins. That's for me. For me, like I enjoy it the most out of the trilogy. Probably just because I really genuinely enjoy the start of things. I really enjoy early seasons. With TV, it's a bit of a hard comparison because generally, as TV shows progress, they get worse. Like Seinfeld's a good example, but I love early season Seinfeld. I love the origin of the characters. They're establishing like who they are, and you're kind of learning a bit about them. We already know Batman's origin story pretty well at this point, but um, I still think it just does a great job of setting the stage for the remainder of the trilogy. And um, yeah, I really enjoy that movie. And oftentimes I find myself going back to rewatch that one out of the trilogy and not The Dark Knight and not The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, really?
Despite me knowing the origin,
Yeah.
like through and through, like I know what's going to happen. Like I know how Batman's origin story started, but I don't know. I really love beginnings, and I'm not sure what that says about me, but yeah, that's number 4 for me.
Also, one thing that it has going on for it is it has its nice like training montage sequences. And I remember when The Last Jedi was coming out, and everyone was talking about how it was going to be a copy of Empire because Force Awakens was a copy of New Hope, and everyone was getting excited because it's like, oh, we're going to get another training movie, and you have like these wonderful like training montages, or like a character being taught something by a mentor. And then the Last Jedi just falling completely on its face in that regard. But I love me some training montages and like mentor sequences like that, and I was excited for Last Jedi, and I actually still do like those scenes in that movie, just not the movie as a whole.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Yeah,
No one's ever really gone. Yeah, I mean that's totally fair. I mean it's weird because the argument you gave around rewatching despite the twist, Tony, like that's how I feel about Dark Knight Rises, for example. I mean, maybe not to the same extent, obviously, because it was like number 7 on my list, but I know everything that's going to happen with Talia al Ghul. I know who it is, but I think it's just pure excitement and awesomeness and action that I continue to rewatch it over some of the other. No, sorry, not the other two. Dark Knight, obviously, rewatch more, but over Batman Begins for me. But totally get it.
Yeah, I think at the time of it coming out too, part of it was like a big comfort thing for me too, and I'm struggling to strike that balance between like when this movie first came out and I watched it, how did I feel at that time versus how did I feel upon rewatch? And when the Batman Begins first came out, I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. This is like totally different from the Michael Keaton Batman's, like definitely different from Val Kilmer's take and George Clooney's take on Batman. And it's just like a full-on reboot of the Batman movie franchise compared to what it used to be. So that's I think where a little bit where I'm coming from and why it's so much higher than Dark Knight Rises and Dark Knight for me.
It's
Yeah,
funny
for
to
sure.
think
Actually,
about. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you bring up a good point about like rebooting the Batman franchise. Like I do remember how like just how much of a shock and a shift it was to see like the realistic dark and gritty Batman. It did kick off like that type of superhero movie, and I give it a lot of credit for that for sure.
Yep.
It's almost shocking to see how close those movies are, because in my mind, the difference between George Clooney Batman and Christian Bale is like 15 years, but it's actually like 6. So
I didn't realize that actually. Yeah, it's a good point.
all right, I think Paulo, we're on to you at your number 4.
Oh yeah. So I mean, these four are probably, sorry, 4, 3, 2 are probably interchangeable almost. But number 4 is Interstellar for me. Again, probably top 2 or 3 soundtrack of all time. Probably even number 1. Gladiator's up there too, somewhere. But yeah, on the strength of that alone, I give it number 4.
It's fair. I've said my piece on Interstellar. So.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about Interstellar anymore, unless you have anything else, Tony.
No, nothing else. I mean, I've said most of my piece on Interstellar already, but I'll try to reserve a little bit for when I'll talk about it later on.
All right, my number 4, which I talked about a little bit, was Memento. Just it's a really solid movie. It's just hard for me to put it any higher, just because like it has that wow factor of the whole like kind of shot in reverse thing. I watched it however many years ago and have never rewatched it since. Like it doesn't have that rewatch value because once you know it, you kind of know it. It's a fantastic movie. Obviously, like the psychological elements of like this is kind of what Christopher Nolan was known for early in his career, and I kind of wish he would bring that back a little bit of like introducing filmmaking techniques that tell a story psychologically and emotionally. So I love the movie. I love all the performances and kind of like how it slowly unravels. Again, like we're in the top 4, so this is all masterpiece territory, but I just can't put it any higher than number 4.
Yeah, I mean, even though I was much lower than that, not much lower, a little bit lower. I don't disagree at all. That was a good point though about like rewatch value. It's the appeal or the main draw is like discovering the mystery or like solving the mystery, and once it's done, you can't really do it again.
All right, we're on to number 3.
Ooh, top 3. I will put Memento as number 3. I may get killed for this by you guys, but I know it doesn't have the rewatch value, and I know I that's why I ranked Inception down low for me, that it doesn't really have that much rewatch value for me. But I liked I liked like that neo noir style of this film. Like I like the mystery component of it as well. Even though Inception had that mystery component too, I like that it was a little grittier than Inception. It almost reminds me in a sense, and you guys can kill me for this if you want to. It reminds me a little bit of David Fincher's Seven, kind of like similar style, where in Seven, like it's just constantly raining in this unknown city that these 2 cops are in, and they're trying to track down this killer. It just felt like a very dark film for me when I was watching it. It made me feel again uncomfortable, and that's just a big part of my top 3 overall was the like physical feeling that I had when I was watching these films. And I do like the style that like there's that black and white and the color style in the movie too. But it did make me feel like a physical feeling when I was watching Memento, and so did the other films and that are one and two. But that's for me the reason why it's top three. I just really like the style of it, the darkness of it, and I like the just accessibility of it too. I feel like it, like we talked about this a little bit already, that it's only an hour and 13 minutes, just a shade under 2 hours long. So it's definitely much more accessible from a like length standpoint than some of his other films as well.
Yeah, and one other thing I'd like to say about Memento is really good casting with Carrie-Anne Moss in that role, because at that point, like this was shortly after The Matrix came out, and so she was like, she's Trinity, like she's a good guy, and so like the fact that there's like a late reveal that she's kind of like a dick was good casting.
Maybe we should give him a lot more like credit around his cat. Well, maybe it's not him who does it, is it? Him personally?
I'm sure
Oh
he has
man,
a voice in it, but yeah, obviously he would have an actual casting director.
and Cypher from The Matrix too, is it? I totally
Oh
forgot about
yeah,
that. Yeah.
But he's kind of an
completely flipped
asshole in
those
both
two.
ones, so.
Well, yeah, actually, yeah, that's true. It just adds to the mystery. But no, I mean, all like good points. I mean, we're splitting hairs when it comes to this top six. I feel
Yeah.
like we addressed these are all really good movies, so there's only like a small margin separating them. For number 3 for me is Dark Knight. For reasons already stated.
Yeah, I also had it at number 3. In my first iteration of this list, it was my number 1, and I had to like convince myself to not have it so high, because like I think just emotionally I hold it so high. But just like I don't know, it's a damn good movie on its own, and like compare it to a movie like Heat is what it always gets compared to, of just, you could take out Batman and it would still be a good movie. You could take out like the Joker and like Two-Face and it would still be a good movie, which is rare in the comic book world because they rely on the characters in the suit so much. So it was nice to see that we got it once and we'll never get a movie like that again.
The only thing I will hold against it is the last maybe 20-30 minutes with like Two-Face. That's the point where it started to feel like it was dragging a little bit, like having to save Commissioner Gordon's family from Two-Face. That was the first time I ever like was in a 3-hour movie and I started to feel like, oh, this is pretty long. But otherwise, like, again, very minor nitpick.
All right, we're on to the top 2 here.
Cool.
Wait, what was your? Oh yeah, you said
Mine
Dark
is
Knight
Dark
as well.
Knight as well,
Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Tony.
2 is Interstellar for me, for reasons we've already discussed. I love the dystopian setting. I really do think that Earth is probably going to head in this direction, as much of a depressing tone it is. And maybe tying it back a little bit to Oppenheimer, I don't think the world's going to end by a nuclear holocaust, but it could end just due to crop failure and crop shortage, brought on by climate change. So I think it's definitely a very real look into our future. So I really did appreciate that upon rewatch. And just an A+ soundtrack, and my movie going experience at the time when I was watching it was like a near out of body experience. Felt great when I was watching it. It was mind blowing at the time, and still a great movie upon rewatch too, despite the ending being a little so. But I'll give him a pass on that, just for everything else that I mentioned.
How did you feel about the casting of was it Matt Damon for
as
the
Mr. Man?
Yes, Dr. Man.
It's funny because like I quote that like just before they meet him, like, do not attempt docking, or I think they already met him at that point. I always quote, do not attempt docking, just like completely out of context, with my brother, because him and I watched it together. Yeah, like I take it or leave it. Like I feel like if you were to replace him with someone else, it would be equally as good. It wouldn't like take away from my experience of enjoying the movie. like Matthew McConaughey, I think carried enough weight in his lead role that like if you were to replace him with someone else, like that would definitely take away from my enjoyment of the film. But
Mhm.
Matt Damon, not so much. If you were to replace him with Rami Malek or Josh Hartnett, it would have been just as good, in my opinion.
I'm not a huge Matt Damon fan, but I did like the performance he gave in that movie. So that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
few that I'll give him credit for. The
Even
other
though
thing
he's
I
a
like about
shitty guy.
Interstellar, now that I think about Interstellar more, as you guys are like reminding me of things of like, yeah, just like going back to that concept of like what the post-apocalyptic world kind of looks like. And again, coming back to me being a new parent, when they talk about the kids going to school of like, oh, the world doesn't need any more engineers, we need more farmers. And it's like, okay, what what schools and trades do I want to like teach my daughter, and like what do I want to encourage her towards? And it's like, yeah, you probably don't need to go into arts, even if that's something you enjoy, because sorry, we fucked up the world for you, so you got to go fix it somewhere.
Yeah, I think the last complaint I'll give about Interstellar is the the scientist that goes with him, the one that gets washed away on the wave planet, was the most unnecessary death I've ever seen in any movie ever. Where he's like standing at the door of the spaceship for a good like for the time it takes Anne Hathaway to be carried by the robot. He's standing at the door where he could have just waited inside the whole time. But no, he stands outside until the wave washes him away and he can't get in. That that has always bothered me.
I think suffice it to say, we could probably nitpick a lot of details on a lot of Christopher Nolan movies,
Yeah,
and
that
the
sure.
strength of the rest of his movies kind of encourage us to not worry about the details so much.
Yeah. Um, and also the what's his name, Romilly, um, the one that they leave behind while they go to the wave
Mm.
planet, like to study black holes. I just feel the absolute worst for him. He's the one like they leave him for like years on the spaceship, and then he finally
17
gets
years,
down to
yeah.
a planet. 17 years. They finally come back for him, and he leaves and the lands on the planet and explodes. Um, Poor guy. Are we? Oh wait, are we on my number two?
You're number two.
Oppenheimer. Again, a little bit of recency bias there, but I I I stand by it.
I'm shocked. I thought everyone would agree that Oppenheimer was not that great, but you guys both had it in your top five,
Yeah.
which you guys might similarly be surprised by. My number two, which is The Prestige, which
Mm.
I debated putting at number one. I love The Prestige. We mentioned David Bowie's turn as Tesla, but just like the strength of it is those two characters one-upping each other, and for me, like it's a really grounded story on like it's almost like a character study on people who are competitive, trying to like one up each other and like why are you trying to do these things and how like to what lengths would you go just for pride and competitiveness and trying to prove yourself. So the fact that it did that, and I usually don't like movies that are kind of based on surprise twists, and it's a movie that has like surprise twist after surprise twist after surprise twist, but like I actually felt it, like I felt like I was actually genuinely surprised, and it added to the story and the characters. So um, I I genuinely love that movie. I've rewatched it many times. Great performances all around, and yeah, love it. Doesn't have the same soundtrack that the rest of Christopher Nolan's films have. That's probably one thing that holds it back.
Yeah, that's true. I think the one thing that I've never really understood about, and this is like again another very minor nitpick, but why didn't Hugh Jackman? Spoiler alert. Why didn't Hugh Jackman just get rid of the bodies after, instead of keeping like an entire warehouse of his own dead bodies in water tanks? Never understood that, except to reveal the twist um, to Christian Bale.
Yeah, I'm not
Sorry,
going to
that
defend
wasn't a
that.
question. It makes for a good twist. It makes for a good reveal, though. I'll give it that.
All right, we are on to the number one picks.
Yeah, last one on the list for me is Dunkirk. I, mentioned this before. the tension that builds up through the soundtrack in that film, like there's just like that constant kind of like low buzzing or humming that you feel is always going to come to a head at some point, but it just doesn't. Just constantly makes you feel uncomfortable the entire time when you're watching that film. That for me like really contributed to my experience watching the film, and it turned in turn made me feel uncomfortable watching the film. And I feel like whenever a film has an effect like that on me physically, um, that's to me the mark of a good film when I'm watching it like that. But I also do like that for a war movie that it really wasn't like the traditional war movie that Paulo like you really like. It doesn't really focus on like the gore. It focuses on one particular story from the war and how how that story came to be and kind of what happened and what transpired. They could have went in so many different directions. They could have shown like some bloody gory scenes, but they chose not to. Um, I did like too that the passing of time. I know Paul, this is a criticism for you from before that, oh, like here was 1 hour has elapsed or 1 week has elapsed, but I think it, as much as that's like a hallmark now of Christopher Nolan films, I do think that he did a remarkable job of showcasing like what the experience was like for someone that was living through this time, whether they were on the beach or in a plane or about to get on a boat to go save these soldiers. Like their concept of time varied so differently and so much that to them it maybe felt like a week had passed or an hour had passed. And I know he's literally telling us how much time has elapsed, just so we're keeping track of it. But I also think it was meant to show that if you're living through this period and living through this time, that your concept of time is also a bit skewed as well. So overall, very well done. I'm not a huge war buff by like war buff standards, but I did really enjoy the film, and it did evoke a physical feeling for me during that time, and that feeling was very much feeling uncomfortable and on edge, and I enjoy that when I'm watching films like this. So big ups to Christopher Nolan for evoking that kind of feeling for me when I'm watching it.
This is where it becomes like difficult to debate Christopher Nolan because like for me Dunkirk was number 9. Like I had it way down the list, but I don't disagree with anything you're saying. Like it's
Yeah,
still a really good movie. There's all these like really good things that he did. And that just kind of like speaks to just how good everything on this list is.
yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like, it's funny because I mean, Carson said it best. We agree with everything you're saying. It's just coming down to preference, really.
Yeah,
And I mean, a lot of why I enjoy a movie does come down, like you said, to how it makes you feel. Um, and that's like just completely subjective. Like, there's no way to rank that. So yeah, I mean, I have no argument against it.
All right, on to your number 1, which is also my number 1 if you've been tracking.
Spoiled it already, but
Yeah.
it's yeah, Inception.
number one for you both, eh? Wow, I feel like I have to rewatch this either tonight or at some point this weekend.
This is as much a surprise for me as it is for you, Tony. Like I didn't I didn't think we would agree on that one. We agreed on 2, I think, which is yeah, especially surprising. Uh Although I was all over the board for everything else compared to the both of you.
Yeah, so Inception for me was like the opposite of Dark Knight. Like Dark Knight I loved and I had to like convince myself otherwise. Like the worst thing that Inception has going for it, in my opinion, is its fans or people who like it, because there's so many people who either misinterpret it or just like are thinking about the wrong things. Like just the fact that the word Inception now means recursion, or like vice versa, um, and just like the fact that people are talking about the dreams element of it. Like for me, it's this really clear story that you could have told. Like it could have been a spy thriller and it could have just been a good spy thriller, but you decide to go high concept, and really what it's about at its core is him exploring the idea of being a filmmaker and like producing art, which is kind of told through this idea of his people creating dreams, which then has like a story put on top of it. Like for me, it's just the most clean, crisp example of somebody taking something that's super high concept that has all these convoluted things and tying it together in such like a nice, clean way that says like it's a very tight knit story around like emotions and characters and like the type of things that they're exploring, that I had to kind of, yes, I hate all the people who are fans of Inception, but the movie itself is genuinely like amazing. And again, as I said earlier, like kind of ruins all of Christopher Nolan's movies after it because he hasn't repeated putting something together that clean since then.
Except for Oppenheimer. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to me because usually with everyone we're pretty much on the same page in terms of like ranking things or like our how we enjoy certain things. But I liked how different your ranking was, Tony, from not only from mine but from Carson's. It was a nice surprise. I actually really liked it.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, I
looking
mean,
at like,
I was thinking about it a lot this morning, where to put Dunkirk, but Dunkirk, yeah, it's really, really enjoyed that movie.
yeah, I like when we do rankings like this, like ahead of time, I try to like predict what other people are going to have high or low, and I'm always completely wrong, and it's just like completely off it. And like I have this written, I've been tracking what you guys are posting so I can write about this after, and it's just like all of the scores are just completely all over the place. So it'll be fun to put these side by side.
Yeah, I mean,
So
again, it just
did you guys did you think that Inception was going to sweep Carson ahead of time?
I didn't think even like not number one. Like I was debating this even like throughout all day today of whether I was going to put it number one because in my mind, Inception, Prestige, and Dark Knight are interchangeably number one. Like they're all that good. So I wasn't. I was more thinking like tiers. Like I was like, here's the obvious top five and here's the obvious bottom six. But clearly, you guys didn't follow that at all.
nope, not at all.
All right, well, we will close off the discussion there. And as we always forget to prepare to, we will talk about what movie we are looking forward to coming out in the coming weeks and months. Even though I have not given you guys time to prep and I have not prepped myself, and I am continuing to talk to delay to give people time to say something, does anyone have a movie coming out soon that they are looking forward to?
Feel
Oh
free
boy.
to start us off.
Yeah, go ahead, Carson.
I'm looking it up to see what the release date is because I'm not sure if it's. I think it might not be for another couple months, but now I forget the title. The John David Washington movie that is another high concept sci-fi movie coming out from the director of Rogue One, which is
Oh,
called. I'm trying to find the title of it. I will find it here shortly.
I can go while you're
Go, yes,
while
go,
you're
please
thinking.
go.
I'm jumping way ahead, but before watching Oppenheimer, the trailer for the Exorcist movie
oh my
showed,
God.
and I absolutely don't want to see it. So actually, this is not really answering the question. I don't want to see that movie at all, mostly because I'm too scared to. But I'm just really curious as to what happens and what the reviews are going to be. So in
So
that sense, I'm looking forward to it coming out.
I didn't know that that movie was coming out, and I thought it was like a ripoff of The Exorcist. And they started doing the first few notes of Tubular Bells, which is the song for The Exorcist, which, by the way, is hilarious because if you ever listen to Tubular Bells, it's like a 45-minute song that has those couple notes at the beginning and then goes just into like this. Anyway, if you haven't listened to Tubular Bells, search it on YouTube and please listen to it tomorrow. It's a wonderful song that is not at all like the first few notes that are in The Exorcist. But I thought it was a movie trying to rip off The Exorcist, and I was like, you're playing just enough notes to make me think of The Exorcist, but you're not going to actually play it because you're going to get infringement. And then by the end of it, I was like, oh, it's actually an Exorcist movie.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yeah,
the
I'm
movie
trying to
that I
look
was
at.
thinking of was
Yeah.
called The Creator. Um,
Oh yes, I saw the trailer for that one.
I think I'm going to be disappointed, but I'm still interested anyway.
I'm getting like 65 vibes from it.
I was hoping for more of District 9 vibes when I saw about it in production, and then I saw the trailer and I was like, it's not going to be as good as I want, but hopefully it's still somewhat interesting.
Fair. Any luck, Tony?
No, I got nothing. I'll come back to you guys, but I got nothing. I'm sorry.
No, that's totally fine. We can actually, I don't know what we're gonna do with this, but I was gonna say I have to go to the bathroom, so you could like kind of edit this for the first time, Carson, if you want, and give Tony some more time.
Sure.
Or my comments about going to the bathroom are going to be on the recording.
And we're done.